Tim here, Gamiviti, hanging out in the garage, just buttoning up an install on a 200 series Land Cruiser, and I wanted to take a minute to review the tightening sequence of all the towers and the rack bolts. It's a conversation I have a lot. I know it's a question that a lot of people have, so I wanted to take a little minute to do a little bit deeper dive into that. This will apply to every rack we do, so not just the roof channel towers like the 200s, 100s, 4Runners, your Lexus GXs, but even the rain gutter towers. It's almost the same sequence for you guys too. So should be fun, should be quick. Stay with me. I will start with just a rundown of where things are. Of course, we got to verify that the hatch, or if you have a spoiler, there's no interference there, no interference with any kind of satellite antenna. And moving on down the line, there's going to be no interference underneath the fairing. There should be about a 1/2 inch gap there at this point. If you want the cheat codes for the 200 series, this is where the bolts are. There's your front plate. There's your optional 4th plate. This comes now standard on the Essential Expos, but that's where those are. Middle tower right there, and the one in back. We get you a little bit better view there. Stay with me. There's your one in back, exactly where they are. Note that those are inside. That's going to be the same on the 100s as well. It's because that roof gets narrower as it goes back. Okay, and big deal here. Nothing is tight. You can see those lock washers don't have any stress on them. I can wiggle these guys. I put the middle height adjustment bolt in the highest setting in the front. And you can see on the other side, that's exactly where that is. You can get away with maybe going one hole lower on the 100s. Sometimes you have to remove that bolt and push it up even further, especially if you're adding the light bar. So you need a little bit more clearance there. And in back, this little guy is on the 2nd lowest setting. So if you look across there, you should be able to see 2 holes on top of it. Maybe I can flip this camera around and show you this way. There we go, that's better. So 2 holes on top of that, 2nd lowest setting, nothing's tight. So the idea here, and this is true for every rack, we use the very furthest back tower and the very furthest forward tower to set that plane, to set the height of the entire system. Then we're going to allow those middle towers to rise up and meet that plane. So very important that we do it in that order. Let me show you how to tighten these guys down. So I'm starting here in the very front tower, and it's that inside bolt, the ones that are closest together. That's what we're going to tighten first. And as I do that, 2 things are going to happen. One is the very top tower piece is going to get sucked up flat to the rack. Remember, there's a little bit of a gap there, a little bit of spring tension is by design. So we're going to suck that up. When that happens, the other thing that will happen, this gap under the fairing is going to go down a little bit. So if you eye this and you're already pretty close, you might want to bump that center bolt up a little bit or push it up without that bolt before you get to this step. Just watch that gap so you don't push the fairing down into the roof. Okay, so these 2 bolts are tight now. I went to the other side and I tightened those also. The next thing I'm going to tighten are going to be these Allen bolts that go into the roof. So when I put this tower on to start, I got it to where everything was snug so that that tower would hold itself up and it would support the rack, but I didn't flatten that rubber sealing washer, saving that for this step here. So again, when I tighten this, it'll actually pull this gap down a little bit because I'm pulling that tower base down tight to the truck, lowering the height of the entire system here. So, okay, those guys are tight. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. We'll come back to the next step. So my next move is now at the back of the rack, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna start with that inside top rack bolt. I'm gonna tighten it down, and as I do that, I'll notice that that gap between the tower and the rack gets shut down completely. I pull the rack down a little bit, and things starts to look nice and buttoned up here. Then I'm going to tighten this bolt here. I'm going to jump to the other side and do those 2 only on the other side of the rack. Okay, I've got both of those tight. On the other side, both of those are tight. Now it's time to take my 6mm wrench and crank those guys that go into the roof. Again, I'm giving those rubber sealing washers kind of the final squish and really making sure everything is nice and snug in there. You might see that tower go down as you tighten this, and that's a total good thing. So, all right. So those guys are tight. I'm going to jump over there, tighten the other side. Right with you. Okay, so rack bolts are tight in the back and the front. Roof bolts are tight in the back and the front. Now we can address these middle bolts. Remember, these are still loose. And that was intentional because it allows that upper tower piece to twist a little bit. It also allows the whole rack to kind of pivot a little bit. If we lock that down, then we're going to put this tower piece under some stress. It's going to transfer that stress down into your roof bolts. Not good. So the way we do it is we do these last. That way everybody's relaxed and everybody's going to be at the same plane and they all can work together. So tighten these. They can happen in any order. And as far as being up and down in the slots, whatever you like visually, it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, both of the rear towers now completely tightened, buttoned up. Time to do the front ones. Again, all we have left are those two middle bolts. I'm going to do both sides. Okay, front towers completely buttoned up, rear towers done. Now, and only now, can I mess with the middle towers. If you had a rain gutter rack, 80s, 60s, same sequence. Now would be the time you can start to wiggle in your middle towers after you get the front and the rear set. So, same sequence with the middle guys. We're going to start with the inside top bolt. We're going to button those two up, both of those. And then we're going to switch to the 6mm Allen wrench. Tighten those two that go into the roof. And then the last ones we tighten would be the two that go through the middle of the tower. So in this case, you can kind of do them both at the same time if you have two and get those knocked out. Just remember that sequence. Okay, a little close up here. I want to show you what's going on here. I think you'll appreciate the significance of what we're doing. Watch this bottom edge of the top tower piece as I tighten this first inner bolt here on the middle tower. Watch it come up. You see that moving? So that's what we're going for right there. And that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. So again, we use the front and the rear towers to set the height of the rack initially. And then we tighten the top, the rack to the towers first. And then we tighten the tower base to the truck second. We did that front and rear. And only after that was done did we mess with these middle bolts here. So that gives everybody at the same plane. All of these towers are now kind of at the same height working together. And that's what we're all after here. So last thing I need to tighten is just those little nuts on the back of those 1/4 bolts in the middle. Those little guys aren't really doing much. Their job's done. They were just set the height initially, but we'll tighten those anyway. Okay, got both sides tightened on those little small guys. Everything's tight. Clearances are good. With that, we'll call it good. Go ahead and give her one of these. It's always fun. Thanks for watching this one. Please let me know your questions. Of course, let me know what else you want to see on these videos. I'll see you on the next one.